Wealthy businessman humiliates and fires black waiter. When he falls ill and goes to the hospital, an unexpected reunion makes him rethink everything. The morning sun had barely touched the skyscrapers of New York when Gordon opened his eyes, his heart beating with a mixture of anxiety and hope. Today was the day. After months of relentless searching, he had finally landed an interview at Le Rêve, one of the city's most prestigious restaurants. Gordon knew that this could be his big chance to escape mediocrity and take the first step towards his dream. As he meticulously groomed himself in front of the cracked mirror in his small Bronx apartment, Gordon couldn't help but smile. His brown eyes shone with determination, contrasting with the dark circles under his eyes that bore witness to the nights he had not slept. His hands, calloused by years of hard work, were carefully adjusting his tie. "Today is the day when everything changes," he muttered to himself, trying to believe his own words. The subway was crowded as usual, but Gordon hardly noticed. His mind was busy rehearsing answers to possible interview questions. When he finally arrived at Le Rêve, he was momentarily paralyzed by the grandeur of the building. He took a deep breath, straightened his shoulders, and entered. The interview was a blur of questions and answers, but Gordon came out of it with a smile on his face and a waiter's uniform in his arms. He had made it. The manager, a middle-aged man called Frank, had been impressed by his determination and previous experience in less prestigious restaurants. "Remember, Gordon," Frank said, his deep voice echoing in the meeting room, "here at Le Rêve, excellence isn't a goal, it's the minimum standard. Our customers expect perfection, and that's what we must deliver. Understood?" Gordon nodded emphatically, his eyes shining with the promise of a better future. "Yes, sir. I'll do my best. Always." The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of intensive training and exhausting nights. Gordon absorbed every detail, from the correct way to fold the napkins to the precise pronunciation of the French dishes on the menu. His co-workers, initially skeptical of the newcomer, soon began to notice his tireless dedication. Maria, a veteran waitress with kind eyes and a warm smile, became his unofficial mentor. "You've got something special, Gordon," she said one evening as they set the tables for dinner. "Keep that fire burning, but remember that here, sometimes, the ground can be slippery." Gordon didn't fully understand Maria's warning at the time, but he treasured her words. He was determined to prove his worth, to show that he deserved to be there. It was on a particularly busy Friday evening that fate decided to test Gordon's resolve. The restaurant was packed. The buzz of conversation and the clink of cutlery filled the air. Gordon moved gracefully between the tables, balancing plates and glasses with the precision of an expert juggler. It was then that he saw him. Trevor Blackwood, the infamous business tycoon, known as much for his business genius as for his explosive temper. Gordon swallowed. Everyone in the restaurant knew Trevor's reputation as a demanding and ruthless customer. With a nod from Frank, Gordon understood that he would be the one to take Trevor's table. Taking a deep breath, he approached, putting on his best professional smile. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Le Rêve. Can I offer you something to drink while you peruse the menu?" Trevor barely looked up from his cell phone. "Whiskey, neat, Macallan, 25-year-old. Gordon nodded and walked quickly away to fetch the drink. When he returned, Trevor finally deigned to look at him, his cold eyes appraising the young waiter. "You're new here," Trevor commented. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir. It's an honor to serve at Le Rêve," Gordon replied, keeping his composure. Trevor made a sound of disapproval. "I hope your competence is a match for the establishment. I don't tolerate incompetence." Trevor's sharp words made Gordon wince internally, but he kept the smile on his face. "I will do my best to ensure that your experience is exceptional, sir." The evening went on, and Gordon did his utmost to attend to Trevor's table impeccably. Every dish was served with precision, every bottle of wine presented with knowledge and respect. For a moment, Gordon believed he was doing well. Then disaster struck. Trevor had ordered Larave's famous beef Wellington. Gordon, in his haste to serve the perfect dish, didn't notice that the chef had made a rare mistake. The steak was slightly overdone. As soon as Trevor cut into the steak, his face contorted into an expression of disgust. "This is unacceptable," he roared, throwing his fork on the table. "I ordered it rare, not that shoe sole." Gordon's heart sank. He knew it wasn't his mistake, but he also knew that, as a waiter, it was his responsibility to ensure customer satisfaction. "Sir, I'm sorry. I'll go straight away." But Trevor wasn't listening. His eyes sparked with anger as he stood up, his voice rising with every word. "You call that service? Is that how you treat customers in this place? I should have known that hiring someone like you would be a mistake." Trevor's words were like stabs, each one more painful than the last. Gordon felt the blood rise to his cheeks, the humiliation burning in his chest. He wanted to explain. He wanted to defend himself, but the words stuck in his throat. Frank appeared as if by magic, his expression a mixture of panic and resignation. "Mr. Blackwood, please accept our sincerest apologies. We'll prepare a new dish immediately. On the house, of course." Trevor snorted, his gaze alternating between Frank and Gordon. It's not just about the steak. It's about incompetence. It's about hiring people who are clearly not up to the job of this establishment. The words hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Gordon felt the gaze of all the customers on him, judging, condemning. He wanted to disappear. He wanted the ground to open up and swallow him up. Frank, visibly upset, turned to Gordon. "Gordon, please go back to the kitchen. I'll take care of it." His legs trembling, Gordon walked away, feeling the weight of failure in every step. In the kitchen, he met Maria's compassionate gaze. "Oh dear," she murmured, "sometimes the floor really is slippery." Gordon had barely had time to process what had happened when Frank entered the kitchen, his face a mask of resignation. "Gordon, I'm sorry, but I think you'd better go home now. And don't come back tomorrow." The words hit Gordon like a punch in the gut. Fired. Everything he had worked for. All his dreams crumbling in a single night. As he walked home that night, the city lights seemed colder, more distant. Gordon felt the weight of failure on his shoulders, Trevor's cruel words echoing in his mind. But amid the pain and humiliation, a small flame of determination still burned. This wouldn't be his last chance, he promised himself. Somehow, some way, he would find a new path. The shrill sound of the alarm clock cut through the silence of Gordon's small apartment, rousing him from a restless sleep. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to believe that it was all just a bad dream, but reality hit him with the force of a train. He was out of a job, his dream shattered in a single night. Gordon sat up in bed, running his hands over his tired face. The room, once a refuge, now seemed to suffocate him with memories of his humiliation. The bare walls seemed to mock his failed ambitions, while the Larev uniform, carefully hung up the night before, now lay crumpled on the floor, a painful reminder of what he had lost. "I can't stay here," he muttered to himself, getting up with renewed determination. "I can't let it define me." The next few weeks passed in a blur of frustrated interviews and closed doors. The name of Larev, once an asset on his CV, now seemed like a curse. Rumors of his dismissal had spread quickly in New York's small world of haute cuisine. One particularly discouraging afternoon, Gordon found himself wandering through Central Park, his pockets empty and his stomach rumbling. He sat on a bench, watching the happy families and carefree tourists around him. Then he noticed an abandoned newspaper next to him. With nothing better to do, he started flipping through it absent-mindedly. Her tired eyes stopped on a small ad. St. Mary's Hospital seeks nursing assistants. Training offered. No experience necessary. Gordon blinked, rereading the ad several times. Nursing assistant. He had never considered a career in healthcare, but the more he thought about it, the more the idea seemed to make sense. It was a chance to start again, to make a difference to people's lives in a way he had never imagined before. With his hands shaking slightly, Gordon picked up his cell phone and dialed the number listed in the ad. A kind voice answered on the other end of the line. "St. Mary's Hospital, how can I help you?" Gordon took a deep breath. "Hello, I'm calling about the ad for a nursing assistant." In the days that followed, Gordon found himself immersed in a completely new world. The antiseptic smell of the hospital corridors, the constant sound of heart monitors, the frantic coming and going of doctors and nurses. Everything was so different from the refined environment he was used to. During his initial training, Gordon met Angelina, an experienced nurse with kind eyes and an infectious smile. From the first moment, she seemed to see something special in him. "You have gentle hands, Gordon," she commented one day, watching him change the sheets of an elderly patient with meticulous care. "That's more important than a lot of people think in this job." Gordon smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude for his new start. "Thank you, Angelina. I'm trying to do my best." As the days turned into weeks, Gordon was surprised by how natural the job felt to him. The attention to detail he had honed as a waiter now translated into meticulous patient care. His ability to deal with demanding customers helped him calm anxious patients and worried family members. One night, while making his rounds, Gordon heard a low cry coming from one of the rooms. On entering, he found a young mother cradling her newborn baby, silent tears streaming down her face. "Is everything all right?" Gordon asked softly, approaching carefully. The woman looked at him, her eyes full of fear and uncertainty. I don't know if I can do this. What if I'm not a good mother?" Gordon felt his heart squeeze. He remembered his own mother, raising him alone, facing so many challenges. Gently, he sat down on the side of the bed. "You know," he began, his voice soft and reassuring, "my mother used to tell me that being a parent is like learning to dance. At first, you might stumble a bit, step on your own feet. But over time, with patience and love, you find your rhythm." The young mother looked at him, a small smile appearing on her lips. "Your mother sounds wise." "She was," Gordon replied, a lump forming in his throat. "And looking at you now, I see the same love in your eyes. You'll find your rhythm, I'm sure." When Gordon left the room a few minutes later, he felt a sense of accomplishment he had never experienced before. It wasn't just about serving perfect meals or impressing wealthy clients. It was about touching lives, making a difference when people needed it most. Angelina, who had been watching the scene from afar, approached Gordon with a proud smile. "You have a gift, you know that? The way you connect with patients. It's special." Gordon felt his cheeks flush at the compliment. "Thank you, Angelina. I'm just trying to do the right thing." "And that's why you'll be an excellent nurse one day," she replied, patting him on the shoulder. "Remember, Gordon, sometimes life's biggest challenges take us exactly where we need to be." As he walked home that evening, Gordon reflected on Angelina's words. Just a few weeks ago, he had been devastated, feeling like a failure. Now, he was finding a new purpose, a new passion. The road ahead was still uncertain. There was much to learn, many challenges to overcome. But for the first time in a long time, Gordon felt real hope blooming in his chest. He had found not just a new job, but a vocation. Arriving at his apartment, Gordon paused for a moment, looking out of his window at the city that never sleeps. The lights of New York shone as brightly as ever, but now they seemed to offer a different promise. Not of fame or fortune, but of a meaningful life, of chances to make a difference, one patient at a time. With a smile on his lips, Gordon got ready for bed, looking forward to what the new day would bring. The waiter who had once dreamed of serving the rich and famous now dreamed of something much greater, serving those who needed it most, with compassion, dignity, and respect. And so, with a heart full of hope and renewed purpose, Gordon fell asleep, ready to embrace his new path, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Dawn was painting the New York sky in soft shades of pink and orange when Gordon arrived at St. Mary's Hospital for another day's work. As he walked through the familiar corridors, greeting colleagues and patients, he couldn't help but smile. In just a few months, this place had become more than a workplace. It was a home, a mission. Angelina met him in the staff room, her normally cheerful face marked by an expression of concern. "Gordon, I'm glad you're here. We have a complicated situation in room 305. I think you can help." Intrigued, Gordon followed Angelina to the indicated room. As he entered, he felt the air heavy with tension. A middle-aged man was sitting on the bed, his face contorted in a mixture of pain and frustration. Next to him, a younger woman, probably his daughter, was trying unsuccessfully to calm him down. "Mr. Thompson," Angelina began softly, "this is Gordon, one of our best assistants. He's going to help with your care today." The man looked at Gordon with suspicious eyes. "I don't need any help. I just want to go home." Gordon approached calmly, his voice soft and reassuring. "Mr. Thompson, I understand that being here isn't easy. I can imagine how you must be feeling. How about we talk a bit about what's bothering you?" Something in Gordon's gentle approach seemed to touch Mr. Thompson. Little by little, he began to open up. Gordon listened intently as the man talked about his fear of losing his independence, about the frustration of being confined to a hospital bed. "You know," Gordon said, carefully adjusting Mr. Thompson's pillow, "when I was younger, I broke my leg playing soccer. I stayed at home for weeks, feeling useless. But it was during this period that I learned to play the guitar. Sometimes those moments of forced pause can surprise us." Mr. Thompson looked at Gordon, a slight smile forming on his lips. "Guitar, huh? I've always wanted to learn." Over the next few hours, Gordon worked tirelessly to make Mr. Thompson's stay more comfortable. He brought music magazines, talked about the great rock guitarists, and even got permission to bring in an old guitar he found in the recreation room. Angelina watched everything with a mixture of admiration and pride. "You have a gift, Gordon," she commented during a break. "The way you connect with patients, it's something special." Gordon blushed at the compliment. "I'm just doing my job, Angelina. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect." The day progressed, and Gordon was preparing for his lunch break when a commotion at the entrance to the emergency room caught his attention. Paramedics were running in, pushing a stretcher. "Male, about 45 years old, victim of a car accident, possible head trauma and multiple fractures," one of them shouted. Gordon approached to help but froze at the sight of the patient's face. Even covered in blood and bruises, it was unmistakable. Trevor Blackwood, the man who had destroyed his dreams at Le Rave, now lay unconscious and vulnerable before him. For a moment, Gordon felt a wave of conflicting emotions wash over him: anger, fear, even a hint of vengeful satisfaction. But then, looking at Trevor's bruised face, something changed inside him. He was no longer the powerful, arrogant businessman, but a wounded human being in need. With a deep breath, Gordon pushed aside his personal feelings and took action. He helped transfer Trevor onto a hospital stretcher, provided crucial information to the doctors and nurses, and even held Trevor's hand during a particularly painful moment of consciousness. Hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. When the situation finally stabilized, Gordon found himself alone in the room with Trevor, now sedated and hooked up to various machines. The constant beeping of the heart monitor was the only sound in the silent room. Angelina entered quietly, placing a comforting hand on Gordon's shoulder. "Are you all right? You seem to know the patient." Gordon hesitated for a moment before answering. "Yes, I know him, or rather I did. It's a long story." Angelina studied him for a moment, her eyes full of understanding. "Sometimes life puts us in situations that test our humanity, Gordon. What matters is how we choose to act in those moments." Angelina's words resonated deeply with Gordon. He looked at Trevor, remembering the night his world fell apart. But now, seeing him so vulnerable, Gordon felt his anger and resentment begin to dissipate, replaced by a sense of renewed purpose. "You're right, Angelina," he finally said. "It doesn't matter what happened in the past. Now, he's just another patient who needs our care." Angelina smiled, gently squeezing Gordon's shoulder. "That's why you'll be an excellent nurse one day, Gordon. You understand that our mission goes beyond treating physical wounds. We're here to heal souls too." As night fell over the city, Gordon remained by Trevor's bedside, monitoring his vital signs and adjusting his IV. In his mind, he went over the events that had brought them there. Fate, he thought, had a peculiar sense of humor. "Don't worry, Mr. Blackwood," Gordon murmured softly, adjusting Trevor's blanket. "You're in good hands now." And so, amidst the silence of the hospital room, two men whose paths had crossed so turbulently in the past now found themselves united on an unexpected journey of healing and redemption. Gordon knew that the days ahead would be challenging, but he was determined to face them with compassion and professionalism. As the city slumbered outside, inside St. Mary's Hospital, a story of forgiveness and transformation was just beginning to unfold. Dawn found Gordon sitting beside Trevor Blackwood's bed, his tired eyes fixed on the heart monitor. It had been a long night, punctuated by tense moments when Trevor's vital signs fluctuated dangerously. But now, with the first rays of sunlight seeping through the shutters, the businessman seemed to have stabilized. Gordon rubbed his eyes, feeling the weight of tiredness and conflicting emotions bearing down on him. Looking at Trevor's bruised face, he couldn't help but reflect on the tortuous paths life sometimes takes. "What do you know?" he murmured softly, more to himself than to the unconscious patient. "A few months ago, you were the man who destroyed my dreams. Now, I'm the one looking after you." A slight movement on the bed caught Gordon's eye. Trevor's eyes flickered open slowly, disoriented and confused. Where am I?" Trevor managed to stammer, his voice hoarse and weak. Gordon leaned in, his voice soft and professional. "You're at St. Mary's Hospital, Mr. Blackwood. You were in a car accident. You're safe now." Trevor's eyes focused on Gordon's face, a spark of recognition passing through them. Do I know you?" Gordon hesitated for a moment, struggling internally. Part of him wanted to tell the truth, to confront Trevor with the past. But another part, the part that had grown and matured over the last few months, knew that this wasn't the time. "Don't worry about that now, Mr. Blackwood. The important thing is that you rest and recover." While Gordon checked his vital signs and adjusted the IV, Trevor watched him intently, as if trying to decipher a complex puzzle. "You," Trevor began, his voice still weak, "you seem different from the others, more kinder." Gordon felt a knot forming in his throat. "Everyone here is dedicated to caring for patients, Mr. Blackwood. We're here to help you recover." At that moment, Angelina entered the room, her face lighting up as she saw Trevor awake. "Good morning. "It's great to see you conscious, Mr. Blackwood. How are you feeling?" Trevor tried to move but grimaced in pain. "As if I'd been hit by a truck." Angelina smiled understandingly. "Well, it was a car, actually, but I understand how you feel. Let's make sure you're comfortable." While Angelina examined Trevor and explained his situation, Gordon stood back a little, observing the interaction. He saw how Angelina, with her kindness and professionalism, was able to calm even a man as difficult as Trevor Blackwood. Later, during his lunch break, Gordon met Angelina in the hospital cafeteria. She immediately noticed his thoughtful expression. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, sitting down next to him with a cup of coffee. Gordon sighed, fiddling distractedly with his salad. "I'm thinking about Mr. Blackwood, how things change. You know, Angelina, a few months ago, this man was the villain in my story. Now, I don't know what to think anymore." Angelina studied him for a moment, her eyes full of understanding. "Gordon, remember what I always say. Every patient has a story. Sometimes the people who seem the most difficult are the ones who need compassion the most." Angelina's words resonated deeply with Gordon. He thought about how his own life had changed, how the failure at Le Rêve had led him to discover his true vocation. "You're right, Angelina. I think sometimes we need to go through difficult times to grow, to become better." Angelina smiled, placing a comforting hand on Gordon's. "That's exactly why you'll be an excellent nurse one day. You understand that our mission goes beyond treating physical wounds. We're here to heal souls, too." The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and challenges. Trevor Blackwood, known for his impatience and difficult temperament, proved to be a challenging patient. But Gordon, inspired by Angelina's words and driven by his own journey of growth, faced each obstacle with determination and compassion. There were moments of tension, such as when Trevor, frustrated with his slow recovery, took his anger out on Gordon. "You call that care? I could hire the best doctors in the world. Why am I stuck in this second-rate hospital?" Gordon took a deep breath, remembering his own struggles and disappointments. "Mr. Blackwood," he said calmly, "I understand your frustration, but please know that every single person in this hospital is dedicated to your recovery. Sometimes the road to healing isn't as fast as we'd like, but it's necessary." Surprisingly, Gordon's words seemed to touch something in Trevor. The businessman looked at him with a mixture of surprise and reluctant respect. As the days passed, Gordon noticed a subtle change in Trevor. The arrogant, impatient man began to give way to someone more reflective, more human. Small gestures of gratitude began to appear. A mumbled "thank you" here, a shy smile there. One night, while Gordon was helping Trevor settle down for the night, the businessman surprised him with an unexpected question. "Gordon, do you ever feel like you've wasted your life chasing the wrong things?" The question took Gordon by surprise. He looked at Trevor, seeing not the powerful business tycoon, but a vulnerable man in search of answers. "I think we've all felt that way at some point, Mr. Blackwood," Gordon replied softly, "but it's never too late to change, to find a new purpose." Trevor was silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. "You know, Gordon, I used to think that success was all about money and power. But being here, depending on the kindness of strangers, it changes a man's perspective." Gordon felt a wave of empathy. "Sometimes, Mr. Blackwood, it's in the most difficult moments that we discover our true strength and purpose." As he left Trevor's room that night, Gordon reflected on his own journey. From ambitious waiter to dedicated nursing assistant, he had found a path he had never imagined. And now, witnessing Trevor Blackwood's transformation, he understood that life had a peculiar way of teaching its most valuable lessons. With a heart full of hope and renewed determination, Gordon prepared for another day of challenges and opportunities at St. Mary's Hospital. knowing that every interaction, every gesture of care had the power to change lives, including his own. The morning sun seeped through the windows of St. Mary's Hospital, casting a golden glow over the busy corridors. Gordon walked with determined steps towards Trevor Blackwood's room, a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and a pile of medical records in the other. The last few weeks had been a roller coaster of emotions and challenges, but he felt he was finally finding his rhythm. On entering the room, Gordon was greeted by a scene that, a few weeks ago, would have seemed impossible. Trevor was sitting on the bed, leafing through a business magazine, but his face didn't display the usual expression of arrogance. Instead, there was an almost palpable serenity in his eyes. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwood," Gordon greeted, placing the coffee on the bedside table. "How are you feeling today?" Trevor looked up from his magazine, a small smile forming on his lips. "Better, Gordon. Thanks." He paused as if gathering his courage for something. "You know, I've been thinking a lot lately. About my life, my choices." Gordon felt a wave of empathy when he saw the vulnerability in Trevor's eyes. "Sometimes difficult times force us to reevaluate our priorities," he offered gently. Trevor nodded, his gaze lost in the window. "I've spent so long chasing success, power, money. And for what? Here I am, depending on the kindness of strangers for the most basic things." Gordon adjusted Trevor's IV, choosing his words carefully. "Mr. Blackwood, sometimes life puts us in situations that make us question everything, but perhaps this is an opportunity for a new beginning." At that moment, Angelina entered the room, her warm smile lighting up the room. "Good morning, gentlemen. How are we today?" Trevor looked at Angelina, then back at Gordon, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You know, Angelina, I was just telling Gordon how I've been reflecting on my life. You too, the way you look after people, the way you make a difference every day. It's admirable." Angelina exchanged a meaningful glance with Gordon before replying. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. But know that every person has the power to make a difference, no matter their position or circumstances." Angelina's words seemed to touch something deep within Trevor. He was silent for a long moment, as if processing an internal revelation. While Angelina carried out the routine procedures, Gordon noticed a subtle change in the atmosphere of the room. It was as if an invisible barrier had begun to dissolve, making way for something new and unexplored. Later that day, during his lunch break, Gordon met Angelina in the cafeteria. She looked worried, fiddling absent-mindedly with her salad. "What's up, Angelina?" Gordon asked, taking a seat next to her. Angelina sighed, putting her fork away. "Gordon, did you see the news today? The hospital is facing budget cuts. There are rumors that they're going to reduce the number of nursing assistants." Gordon's heart sank. He thought of all the patients who depended on them, how essential each member of staff was. "That can't happen. What can we do?" Angelina looked at him, a spark of determination in her eyes. "I'm thinking of starting a campaign to show the administration and the community how vital the work of nursing assistants is. But it's going to be an uphill battle." Gordon felt a surge of inspiration. "Count me in, Angelina. We can do this together." In the days that followed, Gordon and Angelina worked tirelessly, dividing their time between caring for the patients and organizing the campaign. They collected testimonials, organized meetings, and even started planning an awareness event. One evening, while Gordon was explaining the situation to Trevor during his evening care, he noticed a change in the businessman's expression. "Gordon," Trevor began, his voice charged with emotion, "I've spent my life building empires, doing business. But what you're doing here, this is really important. How can I help?" Gordon was momentarily speechless, surprised by the offer. "Mr. Blackwood, we really appreciate it. but we don't want you to feel obliged." Trevor shook his head, a new glint of determination in his eyes. "It's not an obligation, a redemption, perhaps, a chance to use my influence for something that really matters." That evening, as Gordon walked home, his mind was filled with possibilities. The campaign, Trevor's unexpected support, Angelina's tireless dedication. Everything seemed to be converging into something bigger than he could have imagined. Arriving at his small apartment, Gordon paused for a moment, looking out of the window at the city that never sleeps. He remembered how he had arrived in New York, full of dreams and ambitions, how his failure at Le Rêve had led him to this moment, to this mission. With a smile on his lips, he picked up his phone and typed a message to Angelina. "Tomorrow will be a new day. We're in this together." As he prepared for bed, Gordon reflected on the twists and turns that life can take, from ambitious waiter to dedicated nursing assistant, from a quest for personal success to a fight for the greater good. And now, with unlikely allies and immense challenges ahead, he felt more alive and determined than ever. The road ahead would be difficult, full of obstacles and uncertainties. But Gordon knew, deep down in his heart, that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. With Angelina by his side and a noble cause to fight for, he was ready to face any challenge that fate threw his way. And so, with his heart full of hope and purpose, Gordon fell asleep, dreaming of a future where every life touched, every gesture of care, could make a difference in the world. The auditorium at St. Mary's Hospital was buzzing with palpable energy. Hundreds of people, nurses, doctors, patients, and their families crowded into the seats, their faces a mixture of hope and apprehension. On the makeshift stage, Gordon nervously adjusted his tie, while Angelina organized the last notes for her speech. "Are you ready for this?" Angelina whispered, her eyes shining with a mixture of pride and concern. Gordon took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "As ready as I can be," he replied with a tense smile. The last few weeks had been a roller coaster of emotions and frenetic activity. The campaign to save the nursing assistants' jobs had gained an unexpected boost with the support of Trevor Blackwood. The once arrogant businessman, still recovering in his hospital bed, had turned into a fervent ally, using his contacts and resources to raise the profile of the cause. Gordon took a step forward from the microphone, his heart beating hard against his chest. Looking out into the crowd, he saw familiar faces, patients he had cared for, colleagues with whom he had shared exhausting shifts, and even Trevor, sitting in a wheelchair in the front row, his eyes conveying silent encouragement. "Good evening, everyone," Gordon began, his voice trembling slightly. "We're here today not just to save jobs, but to defend the heart and soul of this hospital." As Gordon spoke, his confidence grew. He shared stories of patients whose lives had been transformed by the compassionate care of nursing assistants, of critical moments where the presence of an assistant had made all the difference. "Each one of us," Gordon continued, his voice now firm and passionate, "has chosen this profession not for the salary or the prestige, but because we believe in the power of care, in the dignity of every human life." In the audience, Trevor Blackwood listened intently, his eyes watering with unshed tears. Gordon's words echoed deep in his being, rekindling memories of his own journey of transformation. Angelina took to the stage next, presenting data and statistics that showed the crucial impact of nursing assistants on the quality of care and patient outcomes. Her precise and emotive presentation perfectly complemented Gordon's passionate speech. When it came time for questions from the audience, a familiar voice rang out. Trevor Blackwood, with the help of a nurse, rose from his wheelchair. "I have something to say," he announced, his voice charged with emotion. The audience fell silent, all eyes on the businessman. "A few weeks ago, I was a different man," Trevor began, his voice shaking slightly. "Arrogant, selfish, blind to what really matters in life. But thanks to the tireless care and unwavering compassion of people like Gordon and Angelina, I've not only recovered physically, but I've also found a new perspective." Trevor paused, his eyes meeting Gordon's. "I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, hurt people without even realizing it. But today, I want to do the right thing." With those words, Trevor announced that he was making a substantial donation to St. Mary's Hospital, specifically intended to ensure the continuity and expansion of the nursing assistant program. The audience erupted in applause and shouts of joy. Gordon felt his legs go weak, a wave of emotion engulfing him. Angelina hugged him, tears of joy streaming down her face. Later that evening, after the initial euphoria had calmed down, Gordon found Trevor in a quiet corner of the auditorium. "Mr. Blackwood," Gordon began, his voice laced with emotion, "I don't know how to thank you." Trevor held up a hand, gently interrupting him. "Gordon, please. I'm the one to thank. You've shown me what it really means to make a difference in people's lives." The two men looked at each other, a moment of mutual understanding passing between them. Gordon thought about how their lives had intertwined, how fate had set them on this path of redemption and transformation. "You know," Trevor continued, a genuine smile lighting up his face, "I think I finally understand what you mean about finding a new purpose. Maybe it's time for me to use my resources for something greater than just accumulating more wealth." Gordon nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude and hope. "It's never too late for a new beginning, Mr. Blackwood." As the evening progressed, Gordon found himself reflecting on the incredible journey that had brought him there. From a disillusioned waiter to a passionate nursing assistant, from a young man full of anger and resentment to a man who had found his true calling. Angelina approached, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You did it, Gordon. You didn't just save jobs, you inspired real change." Gordon smiled, feeling a peace he had never experienced before. "We did it, Angelina. All of us." As St. Mary's Hospital prepared for a new chapter in its history, Gordon knew that the challenges were not over. There would be more battles to be fought, more lives to be touched. But now, with unexpected allies and a renewed purpose, he felt ready to face any obstacle. The future, once so uncertain, now shone with endless possibilities. And Gordon, with a heart full of gratitude and determination, was eager to see what the next chapter of his life had in store. The sun was rising over New York, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Gordon was standing on the rooftop of St. Mary's Hospital, watching the city awaken. The fresh morning air carried a sense of promise, of new beginnings. 6 months had passed since that fateful night in the auditorium, when Trevor Blackwood had surprised everyone with his generous donation. Since then, the hospital had undergone a remarkable transformation. The corridors, once crowded and tense, now pulsed with renewed energy. Gordon took a deep breath, letting the gentle breeze caress his face. He thought about his journey, from disillusioned waiter to respected nursing assistant, about to start his formal training as a nurse. Life did indeed have mysterious ways of guiding people to where they were meant to be. "I thought I'd find you here," a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. Angelina approached, 2 steaming cups of coffee in her hands. Gordon smiled, gratefully accepting the coffee. "I just wanted a moment to take it all in before the day starts." Angelina nodded in understanding. "It's amazing, isn't it? How things have changed, how we've changed." The two of them sat in silence for a moment, watching the city skyline. Gordon thought of all the patients who had passed through his hands in recent months, lives touched, hopes renewed. Every story, every smile, every tear shared had solidified his certainty that he was on the right track. "You know," Angelina began, her voice soft, "when you first came here, I saw something special in you. But I never imagined that you would become, well, a catalyst for such profound changes." Gordon felt his cheeks flush at the compliment. "I only did what I thought was right, Angelina. You, Trevor, all of us. We did it together." The sound of footsteps interrupted them. Trevor Blackwood, now fully recovered, joined them on the rooftop. His face, once marked by lines of stress and arrogance, now displayed a serenity that Gordon had never seen before. "Good morning, my friends," Trevor greeted, a genuine smile lighting up his face. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," Gordon replied, offering a warm smile. "We were just reflecting on, well, everything." Trevor nodded, his gaze roaming around the city below. "You know, Gordon, I spent most of my life believing that success meant money, power, influence. But you showed me the true meaning of making a difference." The three of them were silent for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. Gordon reflected on how their lives had intertwined in such unexpected ways. An arrogant businessman, a dedicated nurse, and a disillusioned waiter, brought together by extraordinary circumstances and transformed by the power of compassion and forgiveness. "I have a proposal for you two," Trevor broke the silence, his voice charged with emotion. "I'm thinking of setting up a foundation, one dedicated to improving working conditions and training for nursing assistants across the country." Angelina and Gordon exchanged surprised glances. "Trevor, that's incredible," Angelina managed to say. "And I want you two to be at the forefront of it with me," Trevor continued. "Gordon, your passion and dedication. Angelina, your experience and leadership. Together, we can make a real difference." Gordon felt his heart race at the possibilities. He thought of all the other Gordons out there, people with untapped potential, just waiting for an opportunity to shine. I don't know what to say," Gordon stammered, overcome with emotion. Trevor smiled, putting a hand on Gordon's shoulder. "Say yes. Say that we're going to continue this journey together." At that moment, looking at Angelina and Trevor, Gordon felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. He thought of all the circumstances, good and bad, that had brought him to this point. The failure at Le Rêve, which had once seemed like the end of his dreams, had only been the beginning of something much bigger. "Yes," Gordon finally said, his voice firm and full of purpose. "Let's do it." The three of them embraced, their laughter and tears of joy mixing with the morning wind. Below them, St. Mary's Hospital was coming to life, ready for another day of healing and hope. As they made their way down to start their day's work, Gordon couldn't help but smile. The road ahead was still full of challenges, of course. There would be obstacles to overcome, hearts to heal, lives to touch. But now, with true friends by his side and a clear purpose in his heart, he felt ready to face anything. The young man who had once dreamed of serving the rich and famous now understood that his true calling was to serve those who needed it most. And in this mission, he had found not just a career, but a family, a purpose, a home. As the elevator doors opened onto the ward floor, Gordon was greeted by the familiar buzz of a new day at the hospital. Nurses were running around, patients were being taken for tests, relatives were anxiously waiting for news. But now, instead of feeling overwhelmed, Gordon felt a wave of determination and love wash over him. Every face, every story, every life, all of it was now part of his mission. "Ready for another day?" Angelina asked, a knowing smile on her face. Gordon nodded, adjusting his uniform. More than ever. And so, with his heart full of gratitude and his eyes fixed on a bright future, Gordon took the first step towards a new chapter in his life. A chapter of hope, of healing, of transformation, not just for himself, but for all those whose lives he would touch along the way. The sun continued to rise in the New York sky, promising a new day full of possibilities. And Gordon, once a lost waiter, now a found healer, was ready to embrace every moment of this extraordinary journey we call life. If you enjoyed this story, I invite you to like and subscribe to my channel. Your support motivates me to keep sharing exciting stories nearly every day. Don't miss the next amazing story that's about to unfold on your screen. I greatly appreciate your backing. Hope to see you soon.